The Pittsburgh Steelers added Asante Samuel Jr. in free agency, adding a much-needed cornerback to their secondary after all the injuries they sustained. We'll talk about, can he be the right fit for the Steelers defense that continues to point them in the right direction? And are they headed in the right direction with the trends of late? We talk about that with Nick Farabaugh, and he comes here from PennLive.com. It's the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. And this Locked On Steelers show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network out there. As always, this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America right now. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. As ever before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. You know him at PennLive.com. He is their Steelers reporter there. Nick just got back from LA, though. He wasn't able to be there for the Mike Tomlin press conference. And it was a bit of a journey. We're glad that you made it back safe and sound, Nick. But how surprised were you when you touched down and you're like, Asante Samuel is a Pittsburgh Steeler? I did a quick reaction for the YouTubers and everything on our page. This is why you should follow our YouTube page. But what was your reaction to this signing, to it actually happening? Because we've talked about the potential of it and what he could do for the Steelers.
I'm not stunned he signed. I think there were a few teams that made sense. I thought the Packers made a lot of sense too. But I thought the Steelers, when you looked at their situation, were a very clear path for him to playing time, whether it's outside or inside. I think he has the path there. And on top of that, I think the real key here is the Steelers team neurosurgeon literally did Asante Samuel's surgery. No one has better knowledge of the medical side of his spinal fusion surgery than the Steelers. And obviously, I mean, we're talking about a guy that hasn't even visited the team yet. He hasn't even been in the facility. They haven't looked at him yet, technically. They're comfortable enough to sign him. So I'm not surprised by it. I do think, from a football perspective, this gives them a few flexibility to do a few things. One, Jalen Ramsey can now stay at safety. I think that's something they obviously want. He's brought stability to that position at free safety. He's dissuading some teams from targeting the middle of the field. He's impacting quick game a lot more from that spot too. I understand wanting to keep him there with Kyle Duggar. It seems like, a good thing going. Also, you now have a guy that can play outside and inside along with Brandon Echols. So you lost the inside-outside versatility of Ramsey, but you gain another guy. So you have two of them now that can play outside, inside. I like that. I think when you look at Samuel, he's very much a Steelers corner in a lot of ways. Boomer bust, extremely doesn't really tackle that well. I think that's one thing that sticks out to me. But very much a heady player. He's got great ball skills. If you're talking about turnover culture, he's going to fit perfectly into that. And I think the other big thing is when you look at what Jesse Minter's Chargers defense ran last year, a lot of cover 3, a lot of stuff the Steelers run. It's not going to be a large learning curve for Asante Samuel Jr. They're going to do a lot of the same things that he did in Los Angeles last year. So I think he can get him up pretty quickly to snuff. Just check out the conditioning, see where he's at. This man has literally not practiced yet this year for an NFL team. So we'll see where that goes. But, all things go well. I mean, I think we could talk about him getting into the rotation very quickly on this team, and they need that help. So I think I prefer him to play outside. I think personally right now that's kind of where I'd prefer him, but we'll see where things go.
Just basing it off of PFF's snap count alignments and where he goes, he has primarily played outside corner. Like last year, granted, again, he was hurt for most of the season, but last year 208 snaps on the outside, just 2 in the slot. The year before that, 1,020 snaps on the outside, just 24 in the slot. He has the potential to be there, but I think honestly, Nick, this could be another guy that just lines up with Joey Porter Jr. and it just makes a lot of us feel old who grew up watching both Joey Porter Sr. and Asante Samuel Sr. as we see both of these guys maybe sharing the secondary together. But in all seriousness, I think that there's something, and I alluded to this in my YouTube post and my social medias that I posted my quick reaction. Whereas 2024, yes, Jesse Minter is a cover 3 guy. He operated that. The last time that Asante Samuel played a full season for the Chargers was 2023, and they were more of a 2-high defense. If you look at sports information systems, 62% of their snaps came in 2-high shells versus 29% in 1-high shells. And so I actually think, Nick, the answer might be stick to this might have been a specific addition that they're like, this actually works well with what we're doing right now. Because if you look at what the Steelers did leading up to week 8 of this season, they were kind of split. They had 1 high shell 47% of the time, 2 high shell 45% of the time, and honestly, that was even kind of boosted by the last 2 games there because they started to make that change. Because in the early weeks, it was a lot of 1 high. It was a lot of trying to live in man coverage. In fact, in that situation, but when you take into account just the last 2 games, where week 9 and week 10 for the Steelers and what they've done for the defense, you can see a drastic flip in how they've called it. And again, these games that Jalen Ramsey has moved to safety, and they've kind of said, "Hey, let's give our corners some support. Let's give them some help there." And the difference is staggering. 2 high shell 61% of the time, 1 high shells 20% of the time. So they are completely different in how they call the defense now. And I think that adding Asante Samuel Jr., got to get him up to speed, got to test him out, got to see how everything fits. Because Kyle Duggar came in on a short week and had to get to work. But if he comes in and that surgery's fine and he's good to go and he looks fine in practice, I might be willing to say, hey man, line up on the outside with Joey. Y'all jobs is to press these dudes, be aggressive, take advantage, and know that if you get beat, you got help behind you, because that's what the 2 high cell sheet safeties are for. I think there is potential that this move could fit very well, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're doing a lot of 2 high shells into their single high stuff too, like a lot of disguises and dropping them down. So he's still going to play a lot of cover 3. So I think it's a perfect midpoint in kind of knowing what he learned last year with Minter, plus the 2 high with Brandon Staley that he had. So there's a good kind of background there for him. I think the comp I can use most recently for Asante Samuel, kind of the type of player to expect, is he'll be very similar, I think, to how Dante Jackson played. He'll be a guy that can be very boom or bust at times. He'll allow a big play here or there, but he'll also, get the pick sixes here and there. He's not a great tackler.
No.
He's a type of guy that I don't really think they have in the room right now. He's kind of that gambler type of guy. I do find it interesting that they do at least have him with the slot background, because he did play at a lot of Florida State, and
he did.
We've seen the Steelers have Mike Tomlin has been willing to go all the way back to college profiles, just like he did with Jalen Ramsey, for example, to extract value out of guys he sees fit. And Brandon Echols, coming off that game that he had against Ladd McConkey, I think Echols can play outside or inside, but he's a bulkier kind of build.
Yeah.
Like, he's a stocky type of player.
Yeah.
When he's going to face
shifty.
Right. When he's going to face like quick guys like McConkey, that's probably going to be more fit for a guy like Asante Samuel Jr., who is more of a fluid.
I like this theory, Nick. I like this.
He's kind of a fluid mover. So what I think it actually gives the Steelers kind of options to do is say, hey, we like this matchup here. Maybe we can play Echols outside. We can then shift Asante Samuel inside. We can do different things with this kind of cornerback room. And it doesn't even necessarily mean outside of Joey Porter Jr., you have to have a set starter, right? I mean, maybe one week you like the Darius Slay matchup a little more because you're going to play Porters and you like his headiness, or you like the length that James Pierre gives you because Pierre has, to be quite honest with you, watch the Chargers tape. He played pretty well. So
Nick, I want to ask you this. I asked Alan this same question, and he kind of was playing it down too. Am I crazy for saying James Pierre maybe deserves more snap times? He currently has 12 targets this year and 6 pass breakups. And it's a lot of matchups. He's not playing the top receivers. But man, it's tough to deny when you're struggling you're getting beat for 120 yards the way Echols was last week, and you're getting beat in different directions. Maybe that guy needs some more snaps. Granted, you just got Asante Samuel.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that did a pretty good job against Quentin Johnston. That's not really, that's not a slouch.
I agree.
He did a pretty nice job when he had Keenan Allen on him. I thought he did a nice job, man. And he's physical. I think that's the other thing, because obviously he makes his hay on special teams as a gunner, and You saw that when he like full on spine buster the guy. But he's a physical player. Like he deserves snaps. I am totally up for a rotational game plan specific type of
Yeah.
idea here. Because when you're outside at corner, when you are outside, especially if you're to the boundary side, there's not a ton of communication that necessarily goes on to that outside guy. It's oftentimes more of you got your guy and you're going to focus on your guy. Even in too high, there are some times when you just have to get a check and a call. So I'm not as concerned about a outside corner rotation as I would be like in the slot where that constrained communication. So I'm okay with kind of figuring out what best fits here, but I love that they have another kind of skill type in this room to where they can mix and match different personnel groupings. But I think right now, if you probably told me who the starting corners were going to be moving forward, it would probably be Joey outside, Asante Samuel Jr. outside, and then I'd say Eccles in the slot. That's probably what it will be.
That could be very interesting to see. We'll keep on tabs. I want to talk more about the defensive plan. We're going to include the rest of the defense though, because I want to talk about the trends that we're seeing, that we're all seeing, and whether or not this can be a sustainable thing for the Steelers defense to continually improve and become actually a good unit throughout the rest of the season, because they're going to need them if they want to make the playoffs or even win the division. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. But first, we'll remind you this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, with family, and even on yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits, reaching out for therapy can make a world of difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. I've noticed that simply talking things through, even for a few minutes, helps clear my head and get me back on track. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist who fits your needs, and you can switch anytime if it's not the right match. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Because taking that step toward support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Nick, let's talk about the defense as a whole, because I know that there's some people, like I posted in my my Stars and Skulls grades for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Go read them, by the way, post-gazette.com. I'll also have a film study up on several things that Aaron Rodgers didn't do right, as well as the offense. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But when I posted that, someone commented, because they said, man, there's like a lot of defensive guys that have gotten good grades here when they gave up 25 points. Why is that the case? And someone pointed out, well, they allowed 95 rushing yards to a backup running back. And I'm like, yeah, but like that was a 3.8 yards per carry average. 23 of those points were actually allowed, because two of those points were a safety, and 13 of those points came on drives where they didn't even travel 40 yards. So like largely the Steelers defense had a good game. There were certain aspects that got cooked. Brandon Eccles got cooked a lot in this game. They could have been better in certain spots. They needed to create turnovers. Absolutely. I'm not saying that they couldn't have been better, because they certainly could have. But I think that they are things that are trending positively for this Steelers defense, that if they can continue them and they can get more help on the offense, they need the offense to possess the football and to not have them be out there for so long. But if they can keep trending forward, especially that young defensive front, there are things about this defense that I like about them, especially going up against some of the teams they got to go up against down the stretch, like the Baltimore Ravens, who bulldozed this defensive line in that playoff loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think the run defense has been better. They got worn down in this game. They were on the field for so many plays. It really was that. I think the actual thing, and I'll give you a positive on the run game. Vidal got out of there a few times, and it was only 9 or 10 yards. Because earlier in the year, that would have turned into 30 or 40 yards.
Yep.
Think about that first Bengals game. Chase Brown ripped off, a 36-yarder, then like a 27-yarder. I think something that they are doing better is you can live if you allow a 9-yard run. because you can live to fight another down.
Yeah.
But you can't live when you flip the field on a 30-yarder. And I think that's something to think about. I do think the D-line just absolutely dominated this game. I don't think people are giving that enough credit for what they did. Herbert got rid of the ball in 2.25 seconds. That's even faster than Flacco did when they faced the Bengals the first time. They still 42.5 pressure rate. I mean, that's absurd. 5 sacks. I think they had 5 batted balls at the line of scrimmage on top of that. I mean, D-line, really everyone around just dominated that game. I thought the tackling in space was still a bit of an adventure. PQ missed a lot of tackles at the second level in the run game. There were a few on those smoke routes that they threw out where Herbert would just turn and throw that they missed too. I think that could have been better. But this defense, I mean, they seemingly found some stabilization. They're not giving up a ton of big plays. So I think that's a big thing. It seems like Ramsey's really found kind of his groove. The corners are competitive. What I like, Mike Tomlin said this today, is they're making them earn it more. Like the big play to Ladd McConkey, I'm okay with Echols doing that. He's in the hip pocket. He has the arm out. The ball's just an absolute laser beam.
Yeah.
And McConkey made a strong hands catch. If you're going to lose to Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert, make them be Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey. Like, that's what I think was the struggle in the first half of the season and against the Bengals is, no shade to those games, but like Jamar Chase was wide open. Like, you didn't make him have to be Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? Like, if Jamar Chase is going to beat you, make him be Jamar Chase. I think that's something that this team is now doing, is they are forcing those players to be extraordinary. And so I think they are tighter in coverage. The communication looks way more fluid. They're in their same gaps. They're trusting each other more. In the D-line now, because the secondary is holding up the extra tick longer, the D-line is now eating, and that is how it works. And so this defense is far from perfect. They still have a lot of things to work on. Tackling, I think, is number one for me. I'd like to see them tackle in space better, but I think they have found a bit of a formula here to where they can at least compete. And before Rodgers threw that pick in the second quarter where he sailed it over Metcalf's head, it was 5-3.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, and again, like you look at that was one of the drives where like they didn't have to go 40 yards and they were able to, and that was that. But like when there were 2 drives, they allowed of longer than 40 yards in this game. One was a field goal, one was the touchdown later in the game. And I think that if the Steelers offense can give them a lead to actually play with it, it works. Because even without the lead, even with Justin Herbert getting the ball off, and what was it? You said 2.25 seconds. Like that's even with that, they got 5 sacks. They sacked Justin Herbert. And like, listen, yes, their tackles were hurt, all that, but we've seen plenty of other times when teams had hurt tackles, the Bengals, and the Steelers didn't do nothing with it. And clearly, I think what this says is that they have made adjustments to their plan. They have changed who they are. Again, they were calling 2 high shells and 1 high shells, intermittently, and they were going a lot, they were switching to a lot more 1 high shells, but they are calling more 2 high shells now because they realize, hey, we aren't that team that we thought. We aren't a team that can say, hey, Slay, Ramsey, Porter, sick them. We can't do that. And so we have to get our bread somewhere else. And they are adjusting. They are finding different ways to win with that. And with that, there's growing pains. You're going to have your play where maybe this guy could have squeezed this zone a little bit better. Maybe this could have been done a little bit sharper. But in the last 2 games, you faced the number 1 offense in the NFL and the number 1 seed in the AFC, and you basically took away everything they wanted to do. And then you faced a Chargers team that eventually won out because your offense no-showed on you, but you came out with a plan that showed that it was ready to handle them. And so I think if this defense doesn't sustain major injuries, continues to take steps forward, you still need to make adjustments here and there because teams adjust to you every week, and it can't just be the same plan every time. But I think that with the things that they're putting in place, the basic structure of what this new defense could be, and this is a new defense, I think, that the Steelers are trying out right now, there is the foundation for this group to go and beat some of those good teams down the stretch on their schedule. And I mean the Bills, the Ravens, the Lions. They have the potential. I'm not saying they're going to, but if you would ask me after the Bengals game and the Packers game, and I'm thinking like, man, I don't know what their changes are going to be, but they need to make them. But now that they've made these changes, I think these changes actually help them with some of those teams specifically.
And this week is the ultimate test. So how do they look this time against the Bengals? I think that's the big thing. Do they communicate properly? Do they just make them earn it? Do they make T. Higgins and Jamar Chase be those two guys? I think that's the key here is you're going to play man-to-man. The Steelers have an identity, and they're going to play what they play, and even though they've moved to too high stuff and they've done that, they're still going to be the Steelers to a degree, right? You still got that cover 3 kind of identity with the blitzes. They're still going to be there, but now they're change-ups. They're not just everything. And I think that's the other thing is the blitzes they're sending now, Chris, are like way more they're way more kind of methodical. It's not just blitz 50% of the time because you kind of have to. It's now we're going to blitz here because of this look, and we're going to send it from this look. And I think it looks way better when you do that than use it as your fastball. And so I think that they look better. I'm still not fully bought in that everything's fixed. I think they're going to run into bumps in the road. It's just a really hard schedule from here on out offensively when they face offenses. But because I think we're going to see some of this, really the personnel limitations pop up in the secondary. And PQ has to play better. He's struggled the last few weeks. If they can get PQ on track, I think things will look a lot better because Peyton Wilson's having a really nice stretch here to go along with this defensive resurgence. But I do think some of that personnel will prop up as weaknesses. But if they can just keep the schematic stuff in check, I mean, if you go and you face the Lions and you allow 25 points, I feel like I got a shot to win that game. You know what I mean? Like, that's a fine game every time. I feel like my defense gave them an opportunity. And so I think that's what you can ask of this defense right now. I think they're improving. So good for them.
I think so, too. I think it's going to be really interesting to see moving forward. But lots to discuss here for this defense. But I want to talk about this offense because we've talked a bit about them in the last few days, but I want to get Nick's thoughts here and also Mike Tomlin's thoughts because I asked him about the offensive plan and what they need to do better moving forward to help with Aaron Rodgers and what needs to happen there. So we got a lot of that to discuss. Stick here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today, and you can see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. And we're talking about over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery, which can be a true game changer when you're up against the clock to get things done. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free. Use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. We're also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who scored the next point to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets in the same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, and especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when you hit your first bet of $5 or more. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, I wanted to ask Mike Tomlin because I've talked about this with Alan Saunders. I talked about this myself after the game. I felt like Aaron Rodgers had a terrible game. I mean, everyone can kind of acknowledge that, but I also felt like there was a bit of going away from the thing that made the Steelers offense competitive in the first half of the season, which was distributing the football to the open man consistently. And that didn't happen enough in this game. I thought the Chargers deserve credit for taking away some of those open guys, but there were a lot of those plays where those guys were available in reasonable spots to expect them from Aaron Rodgers. Here was Mike Tomlin. I asked him a question on that, and I also asked him a follow-up question. It kind of gets him to, I wanted to get him to talk about acknowledging what they have to do better there. Here was how he responded.
Mike, Aaron made some uncharacteristic mistakes, missed throws, not seeing things. You credit Jesse Minter with doing things that kept you guys off schedule at times. What do you guys have to do coaching-wise to counter what you guys saw there and keep it from being a blueprint to use against this offense?
As I mentioned, it wasn't the first time we saw that blueprint, and so I'm not going to pretend like some of the things that we saw that created the negative result was new. We've conquered it before, and so it's reasonable to expect us to conquer it again. But we did not have a good day Sunday night, certainly.
Following up on your earlier comment about you've seen the blueprint before that stopped your offense. What do you guys have coaches have to do to better counter that, seeing that moving forward if more teams are starting to use it?
As I mentioned, we've worked to put guys in a variety of positions to move the chains on third down other than DK. It's their job to do so when we do. We've done a better job of that in the past in other games than we did on Saturday. The results speak for itself. And so with that understanding, we're going back to work this week, and we got to put together a better plan. We got to make more plays.
And I think there's a bit of acknowledgement there talking about blueprints, and they've seen them before and needing to put together a better plan. I think Mike Tomlin's acknowledging, hey, like Aaron made mistakes, but we got to help a bit more with how we design things and set things up for other guys to succeed in this offense, not named DK Metcalf. I think that's a bit pointed by Tomlin, kind of on the nose, where I think that's kind of my assessment here is that they need to do that. And I do think, again, those plays were available, like the fade to DK Metcalf into double coverage. I thought Pat Freiermuth was wide open over the middle. And if he hits me, at least gets the first down, maybe a touchdown. And there's other plays too where, it wasn't designed. Johnny Smith was wide open on a flood concept that just you got to hit and things like that. But Nick, what was your thoughts on the balance between how much of it was on Rodgers and how much of it is they need to adjust this offensive, especially the passing plan right now to make things easier for Aaron?
Well, I think Rodgers certainly missed his fair share of passes. You mentioned a few of them. I think the safety was on him. I think he had two guys open on that play with Gainwell and Freiermuth. I think, he missed Gainwell in the flat on another play. It was not a great day for Aaron Rodgers. Handling pressure, accuracy, bad. He also missed DK on what was a tough throw, but he still overthrew DK on what would have been a touchdown. What was the first drive of the game? It's the first or second drive of the game early in the.
It was early.
Game. Yeah. So, that was early. I do think it's not just him though. I do think he struggled and certainly is a big part of this. I think some of the play calls were a little suspect. They were a little too static for my liking. Some of them on third downs. I think also some guys just not winning on third downs. I don't think we saw a playmaker really step up outside of Warren and Freiermuth. I thought Freiermuth should have been targeted way more with the day he was having on his limited targets. Those were the two guys all day that I looked at and said, they're making plays for this quarterback right now. Even Darnell made that tough catch over the middle. And Jonnu didn't make that wasn't a great pass, but I told you, I told you this before the show, Chris. Can you think of one tough catch Jonnu Smith has made this year for Aaron Rodgers?
Can't think of one. I think they're all in open space.
Right. It's just, why is he playing over Muth? Muth is the second best pass catcher on this football team. I do think, when we're talking about putting guys in certain situations, Jalen Warren did not play a single third down in this game. Mix up the rotation a little bit. It's okay to take him off, early down duty on this sequence if you want to. And then maybe put Gainwell in there. Gainwell and Warren, both of them have skill sets that work on early and late downs. So it's fine to mix and match a little bit, but Gainwell shouldn't have outsnapped Jalen Warren in this game. That's crazy to me. Jalen Warren is your engine, to be quite honest with you. When the offense is rolling, usually he's rolling. I think that's something. And then one other thing I really want to see. How we keep talking about how DK Metcalf gets clouded? How about moving him around the formation a little more on third?
Yeah.
Get him in the slot. Get him around the formation. Try to get him away from some of this cloud coverage, or at least make it burdensome for the defense to make that cloud coverage work to open other things up. So there's different things that they can do. Rodgers has to be better. Smith has to be better. I think the receivers certainly have to be better. They weren't open on a lot of plays either, but there were plays to be made that they didn't maximize. So when you have a game like this offense did, on Sunday. It's not just a quarterback. It's not just a play caller. It's not just your receivers. It's a little bit of everything. So they all got to look at themselves this week and be a little better.
I agree. They need to take a step up as a collective, but again, to Tomlin's point, they have addressed it. I think the Seahawks did a lot of things that they had to counter, and they did. I do think that they have the capabilities to respond to this blueprint that was put out by the Chargers, and to other blueprints that they face throughout the season. I think some of it does come down to executing in the moment, but some of it might come down to, hey, let's put these guys in better situations where we can expect them to be more successful on the offense. But still a lot to discuss when it comes to this matchup. We'll do that on Crossover Thursday. We got the guys of Locked On Bengals joining the show. It'll be a fun one there. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people that can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh Blue Sky Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to read the stuff at PennLive.com/Steelers and check out the YouTube channel, The Steelers Blitz on Penn Live.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. Nick, thanks for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media handle. So my handle is always at Carter Critiques. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com, including a film study on Aaron Rodgers and this passing offense and what needs to be better there. And, of course, you can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those daily Monday through Friday episodes. Tune in tomorrow for Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.